Hey, it's Luke from LT Gaming, and today we're looking at space and sci-fi games that you should hopefully have in your hands soon. Not distant dream projects, not stuff floating around 5 years out in deep space, but games that are either closing in on release or at least feel like they're finally getting into range. So if that sounds good, give the video a like to help boost this one across the galaxy, or at the very least stop it getting lost somewhere beyond the event horizon. And with all that, let's get straight into it. Directive 8020 takes this list in a darker direction, swapping open-ended sandbox play for a cinematic sci-fi horror story aboard the colony ship Cassiopeia. I think that sounds pretty fascinating, and I am a fan of some sci-fi horror every now and then. Set on a desperate mission to Tau Ceti, it follows a crew hunted by an alien organism that can mimic its prey. Now, it took me so long to say that sentence, for some reason I kept getting it wrong, and my 10-year-old daughter here is laughing at me. There we go, she now finally has a laughing cameo in one of our videos. You're famous, Evie. This one has branching choices and that familiar who can you actually trust tension throughout the ship. Directive 8020 looks worth considering because it adds some real variety to a sci-fi list like this. Instead of selling scale, trade routes or fleet building, it's going after atmosphere, paranoia, and player-driven consequences with multiple endings. And it's coming on the 12th of May, so we're super excited to get our hands on it. It's one of the more immediate and distinctive games to watch, especially if you want your sci-fi with a strong horror edge. If you're looking for a good sci-fi horror book, check out Aliens Omnibus. It's actually a really cool story and I enjoyed it a lot. The Expanse Osiris Reborn looks to be much more than just a story-driven pick. I was at a creator event for this the other day that was very interesting, a lot of cool questions, and it was great to see how passionate the developers were for their game. They genuinely love this project, and I have to say that came through strongly when I asked my question as well. You play as a Pinkwater security mercenary in this one, caught up in a system-wide conspiracy after a lockdown on Eros, and then moving on through major locations like Ganymede, Ceres, Mars, and Lunar, while making choices that shape how events and relationships unfold. What I liked hearing was once you get past the first main mission, you're actually free to explore, and I think that's really cool. It makes the game feel a little bit more free roam and less story driven in its approach, and I'm very excited to see how they actually deliver that. I mean, Owlcat have amazing pedigree, it was great to see how interactive they were with all of us, and next time let's do it in Cyprus, it'd be awesome. You have to consider this one, it's one of the best sci-fi experiences I think on the horizon, and that lean into political tension, crew dynamics and grounded sci-fi identity make this game a standout in the first place. Between the cover-based combat, companion command system, and the promise of meaningful choices across a proper narrative RPG, this feels like one of the most ambitious upcoming sci-fi games on this list rather than just another licensed release. Sylph looks like one for the hard sci-fi crowd, dropping you into a first-person flight sim built around realistic orbital mechanics and Newtonian physics in a star system circling a black hole. I mean, it sounds absolutely fascinating. Rather than going for arcade spectacle, it leans into precision flying, ship systems management, docking telemetry, and a glorious cockpit full of panels that actually matter, with the black hole setting giving it a striking hook right out of the gate. There is something strangely fascinating about black holes, right? It's always captivated us. And I think what makes Sylph worth considering is that it feels far more focused and technical than the average upcoming sci-fi release. That black hole simulation, deep systems modeling, and proper physics-driven flight can make it a real standout for players who want something more demanding and immersive. Oh my god, I said the word, you better all take a drink. It has a planned launch date of 8th of April, so we don't have to wait too long, and for those who are into hard sci-fi, it could be a great little pickup. I really enjoy raising the profile of games like this because honestly, they just otherwise don't get any mention anywhere and they just disappear into the void or the black hole, let's say. One of the more interesting and speculative entries on this list. Dead Reckoning The Long Drift takes a very different route from the usual flashy sci-fi setup, putting you in charge of a generation ship carrying 1,000 colonists across the dark between stars. Rather than focusing on dogfights or spectacle, it's built around slow burn decision making, resource pressure, and the way a society can quietly change over decades. I mean, welcome to real life. Every choice here pushes a colony towards outcomes you may not fully understand until it's far too late. This is definitely a more unknown game on the list, so I really do think you should give it a chance, maybe wishlist it, see what it's like when it comes out and pick it up. This one does look worth considering because of how distinctive the game feels in its setup. That idea of shaping a civilization across centuries with genetic drift, class fracture, AI influence, and multiple radically different endings gives it a very unsettling and thoughtful edge. It's also not too far away either, with early access planned for the 29th of May. SpaceCraft is a big online sci-fi sandbox that is aiming for something broader than your usual fly, fight, repeat formula. Instead of focusing on just one part of that fantasy, it leans into the idea of building your own operation in space. In this one, you're going to be creating ships and establishing outposts to expanding across planets, stations, and resource routes in a universe that feels built for long-term growth. And yes, it's an MMO, so have a good whinge about that in the comments below. On a serious note, a large part of the silent majority seem to like the idea of an MMO, but a very loud minority really want single player, and I get both sides, to be honest. I can understand it from all perspectives. I prefer playing single player games myself, but I also am curious to see how an MMO in space could work out. I mean, you know, Star Citizen hasn't done a great job so far, though people have told me it is improving. Maybe 2026 is the year I jump back into Star Citizen, who knows? But let me know in the comments below, has it improved and should I give it another shot? But back to SpaceCraft, and if you're interested in creating a foothold among the stars rather than just constant combat, this could be one for you. The economy, automation and co-op potential here is huge, and I'd like to create an LT Gaming Corporation. I think that would be a lot of fun with all of you. Early access is planned for Q2 2026, and many of you got your hands on the demo, and it already feels like one of the most promising space sandboxes to watch, so I had to include it. Just a quick interlude to suggest, why don't you subscribe to the channel? We know that many of our viewers are not, and you're going to miss out on some of the awesome upcoming titles and the deep dives that we do here on LT Gaming. Plus, we do key giveaways. You can join the Discord where I do giveaways in there also, and maybe even join the channel as a member. We just published our first newsletter. So subscribe to LT Gaming and help a small champion of indie titles conquer YouTube. We really appreciate it. Possible One Lunar Industries is a real-time strategy simulation set on the moon, focused on building and sustaining a functional lunar industrial network. Rather than traditional base rushing or combat-heavy play, it centers on logistics, production chains, and careful infrastructure planning in a harsh, unforgiving environment. What makes it worth watching is how deliberately specialized it feels. By leaning into realism and long-term efficiency over spectacle, it's carving out a space for players who enjoy thoughtful RTS design and methodical problem-solving. If grounded space industry and strategic planning are your thing, then you should wishlist this one. Remnant Protocol blends space combat with a wider strategy layer, casting you as the leader of a galactic rebellion striking back from a hidden base. The pitch here is less about freeform wandering and more about running a long guerrilla campaign where dogfights, research, manufacturing, alliances, espionage and political pressure all feed into the same war effort. What makes Remnant Protocol worth considering is that the mix still feels pretty appealing even after being coming soon for what feels like forever. If these guys don't make a move soon, we're not going to put them on any more lists. I jest, of course, but there is a good hook here in the idea of balancing cockpit action with rebel command decisions. And Steam is now saying that early access is Q2, so we'll take that as, you know, gospel. There will, however, just be a playable prologue rather than a full campaign at launch. It's more of a tentative one, but I felt it still deserved a place on this list as it is an exciting project. Battlestar Galactica's Scattered Hopes was very divisive when me and Tom played the demo. Now, I actually kind of enjoyed it, and Tom, being a huge roguelite fan, didn't, so maybe that's a bad sign. But apart from the combat, which I felt was a little bit weak, I felt the rest of the elements were actually pretty interesting. I enjoyed the story, the choices, and even the roguelike elements, even though I don't play many of them. Instead of simply staging big space battles, this one mixes tactical combat, crisis management, faction tension, and that roguelike structure, with every jump forcing you to balance dwindling resources, internal problems, and the constant threat of the Cylon pursuit. Now, it's not Battlestar Galactica Deadlock, which is an all-time favourite of mine, and if you're looking for a little bit of an LT Gaming deep dive here, you should check out the Battlestar Galactica mod for Homeworld Remastered. It's actually really cool. I still think this one is worth considering because it does have the tone of Battlestar Galactica rather than just borrowing the name. The tension is definitely there. The mix of hard choices, procedural runs, tactical pulls, battles, and the pressure to keep a battered fleet alive, for me, just gives it enough identity to get it over the line. It's coming very soon, and it feels like one of the most interesting near-term sci-fi strategy releases to watch. In the Black brings something a bit more old school, pitching realistic 23rd century space combat with a serious respect for science. Set in our own solar system, it casts you as a mercenary fighting corporate shadow wars, and has single player contracts, co-op PvP, deep ship customization, and a strong cockpit sim angle rather than broad sandbox sprawl. There's some news coming on this one very soon, and that's about as much as I can say. In the Black is definitely worth considering for your wishlist, as it's a genuinely cool concept, especially if you like hard sci-fi and a bit of challenge in your dogfights. I'm not going to say too much about this one, but we will let you know immediately on LT Gaming as soon as we have any news. Keep it wishlisted and keep an eye on the channel for the next update. Solar Expanse brings a more optimistic angle to this list, leaning into the fantasy of guiding humanity's push out into the solar system rather than blasting everything in sight. It's built around managing exploration, expansion, colonization and long-term growth, and the pitch is a slower one with a more peaceful journey from early space race ambitions through to a much bigger human presence among the planets. And it's coming really soon with the release date set for April 9th. Solar Expanse is really worth considering because of its calmer tone. Had a lovely moment when Artemis 2 was just launched. A game focused on exploration and humanity reaching outward feels especially well timed. Rather than selling chaos or combat, this one stands out by tapping into that hopeful side of sci-fi, which could make it a really nice change of pace on this list. I hope all you space fanatics like this one. I've been Luke from LT Gaming and I'll see you out there amongst the stars.